Hello, my name's Jim Vankoski. I'm the curator of the Sports Legends of Delaware County Museum, located in Radnor Township, 301 Ivan Avenue, Wayne, Pennsylvania. And we're here with Rich Pagano. Rich Pagano is our chief docent. When we give tours during the week and on the weekend, I highly suggest that you take advantage of that. And Rich, here we are again talking about our sports legends. This week's a little bit different. The first week we talked about, I believe,
Carson Thompson.
Carson Thompson. And then the second week we went into Danny Murtaugh. And then the third week, I believe, we went into Ted Meredith.
Yeah, Ted
and Leroy Burrell.
And Leroy Burrell, the Olympians.
So there's a common theme there. They're all males.
Right.
Now, somebody's liable to get the idea that we don't have any women in our museum, and that's not true. We have a whole gallery devoted to women called the Wide World of Women's Sports Gallery from Delaware County. And today we're talking about a very notable person that makes up that gallery, which is Gertie Dunn. And I'm going to ask you a question, Rich. Have you ever had the opportunity of meeting Gertie Dunn?
Yes, I did. And it probably was 15, 20 years ago when we inducted Gertie into the Delaware County Athletes Hall of Fame. And I met her that night. I, at the time, didn't know everything about her. But afterwards, I said to myself, this might be the greatest all-around women's athlete in the history of our county. I mean, what she accomplished in so many different sports is amazing.
Well, I know that the Delaware County Athletes Hall of Fame, when they have their induction ceremonies, they like to induct people in a particular sport. And like you say, when it comes to Gertie Dunn, they would have a very difficult time trying to figure out which sport they should induct her in. So do you know if they inducted her into a specific sport?
No, I think she was inducted in multi-sports, they call it. That's a category because, you know, when it came to field hockey and lacrosse, she's in the Hall of Fame, the National Hall of Fames of both of those sports. Plus she has the experience of playing in the hardball and that All-American Baseball Association that she played in the 1950s. So you couldn't pigeonhole her. You know, she was too well-rounded.
And something else about her is that I had the pleasure of meeting her too when we had our inaugural exhibit in Chester
yeah.
in 2002. And a funny story about her, when I was talking to her on the phone, I had never personally met her, but I'm talking to her on the phone, inviting her to be one of our sports legends. And she said, well, who else is going to be there with me? In other words, she wanted to make sure that she knew who these other people were. She said, I've been inducted into a lot of Hall of Fames, and I'd never heard of anybody. But when I said, well, we're going to have Jack McKinney, NBA Coach of the Year, and we're going to have Bob Rigby, the first soccer player to appear on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and we're going to have Mickey. As soon as I got her, she said, okay, that's enough. I'll show up. So she was very interested, and she was one of those individuals that the first time you met her, you were a friend for life. I mean, after 5 minutes, you were just, she just had that dynamic personality.
She did, very friendly, and again, I never really talked to her again after that banquet. I did an article a few years later, but she had already passed, and so I got information from secondary sources and from her niece, and did an article on her life, her career.
You had mentioned that she was part of that All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. The initials there are kind of confusing. And those that aren't familiar with the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, that's the movie A League of Their Own. And Gertie was actually a Rookie of the Year in that league. So
she was Rookie of the Year, in 1952. And
to give you an idea of her personality, people would ask her, well, Gertie, who played you in the movie? And right off the bat, she would say, well, Madonna played me. and her personality was such that she could pull it off. Plus, when you look at her, she was a very attractive individual. And I think that people don't understand how young she was when she was doing that. That's an interesting story, Rich.
Yeah, she attended Sharon Hill High School, and of course there was no hardball there. They played softball, she played basketball, she played field hockey. At that time, Sharon Hill didn't even have a lacrosse team in the spring. And they had tryouts. It was the summer after her junior year in high school. And she made the team and played. But when she came back to Sharon Hill her senior year, she couldn't play any sports because they were amateur sports, and she had already played a year as a professional in the summer. And you couldn't, you know, she was paid. And they were real strict with those rules, the AAU and the Olympians, and that's how Jim Thorpe had gotten in trouble, because he had played some baseball and received some money, and they took away his medals. So she spent her senior year at Sharon Hill not playing any sports at all, which
I'm sure a
which
lot
was
of
tough
the,
on
a
her,
lot of the
yeah.
opponents were very happy
Yeah,
that she
yeah.
wasn't playing any sports.
Exactly.
Because, like you said, she was so well-rounded. She was a lacrosse player. She was, and when we say lacrosse player, we're talking about national teams.
Oh yeah,
Field hockey player,
national teams.
Not just, and when we say that she's a member of the Hall of Fame, well, she is a member of the Delaware County Athletes Hall of Fame, but she's a member of the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame and the National Field Hockey Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, she's the only player, quote, I'm saying player, that have been inducted into both field hockey and lacrosse Hall of Fame.
And that's from our county, but is that also nationally?
That's national.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when we were doing the research, when we had that Wide World of Women's Sports exhibit, I was in touch with the director of the Lacrosse Hall of Fame, and I was asking that question, and it turns out that this is not just Delaware County, but nationally, they're the only ones.
And what I found interesting too, because in high schools back then at Sharon Hill, in the spring she played softball. They didn't have a lacrosse team, as far as I know, so she didn't start playing lacrosse until she got to Westchester, and that was much later because she was playing baseball. You know, this woman was. I wouldn't argue she maybe is the best all-around women's athlete to come out of Delaware County, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think we can say that it takes a lifetime for some people to accomplish what she did, but she accomplished many things and for many lifetimes. Right.
And as you were saying too, even later in life, she was a 6 handicap in golf for about over a period of 20 years. Was the Delaware State, won the Delaware State golfing championship. I think everything that she did, she was good at. I'm sure bowling, anything that she would decide to get involved with athletically, she was outstanding.
At that inaugural exhibit, like I said, I'm talking to her for 5 minutes. Now, my wife was also a student of hers. She became an instructor at Westchester.
Right.
So that's sort of like, what's the icing on the cake as far as getting a little relationship there together. But she invited me to her house. I said, Gertie, we need something personal of yours. So she said, well, come out to my house and we'll see what you like. So I went out to her house, and darn if she didn't have a game-used baseball from her 1952 Rookie of the Year season.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had her document that. And if you notice...
Yeah, I was going to say, show them the difference.
Well, you point that out, Rich.
Well, this is the hard ball that the men use. And you can see that the women's ball is a little bigger. And compared to a softball, they're both much smaller. But this was the ball that they used, and if you saw the movie In the League of Their Own, this is that ball, and this is the ball that men use in Major League Baseball.
So that's a little known story that you'll find out when you come to our museum.
Yeah.
Because I was surprised when the first time I saw it. I said, Gertie, this ball's a little bit bigger. She said, yeah. She said everything wasn't exactly the same as Major League Baseball. And I noticed that she was a real hero of Amelia Earhart when I was at her home.
Okay.
And it wasn't for a couple years after that that I found out why she was such a hero, because she got her pilot's license at age 60, I believe. And we became pretty friendly. She calls me one Sunday morning. She says, Jim, I want you to go to Cooperstown, New York with me. They're honoring me in the League of Their Own room that they have for the women to play professional baseball. I said, Gertie, this was 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, Gertie, what time are they doing this? She said, well, 2 o'clock. I said, it takes 5 hours. I've driven to Cooperstown. It takes, oh, we're not driving. I said, we're not? She said, oh, no, we're flying. I said, we're flying? She said, oh, yeah, I have my pilot's license. I said, what kind of plane you got? She said, I said, I don't fly on one of those little planes. And I wasn't being wise, but it turns out it might have been a smart decision, because that's how Gertie met her demise.
Yeah.
When she was a pilot in an accident, a plane crash where she was killed.
And what was that? Was that less than a year later?
Yeah, that was within a year of when she wanted me to go to Cooperstown, because she knew I was a baseball fan. She knew I would like it, and she just thought that I would be good company in doing that. And it's fun. And I would have loved to have gone, but I've been in those. Tell us about Joe Paterno, for example. You had mentioned about in his contract.
Oh yeah, in his contract he had that he would not fly in small planes. Yeah. John Madden wouldn't fly at all. He's traveling around doing Monday Night Football in a Winnebago, going from city to city. So some people had a real fear of. But I can see you feel everything when you're in a small plane.
And that's not a short trip. You're going from Westchester, I forget the name of the exact airport, Chester County, to Cooperstown. Yeah, that's not a short. Yeah, that's not a short trip. So I'm glad I decided not to go with Gertie. But
I thought another interesting thing. There was a period of time when she got out of education and coaching and all, and she started her own business, selling, I guess, uniforms and things like that. And she traveled all around the country, went to these conventions to get teams and schools to buy her. And I'm not sure how long she did that. You didn't talk to her about that, did you?
Matter of fact, when I was at her house, Rich, I think Gertie had an agenda, because she said, you know what? She said, I've been to your museum, and it seems like you bring a lot of children through there, which we did at that time.
Right.
We'd have Passport to History field trips from the Delaware County Historical Society. She said, wouldn't it be nice to give them a souvenir from their trip? I said, that's a good idea. She said, I got just the thing. So she was working for a pin company out of China. So I left with a ball, and I also left with 500 pins. That I purchased from Gertie. But we still have a couple.
Yeah, I remember that now, yeah.
So that was a nice little souvenir gift for the children when they came through. So Gertie was a salesperson, a consummate salesperson as well. But I want to backtrack, because you had said that she wasn't able to play sports in high school.
Her senior year.
Because she was a professional.
Yeah.
17 years. I think this picture was taken when she was like 17 or 18 years of age. She was just getting into her prime when that league disbanded.
Right.
And the reason I want to point this out is because we have pictures. We're producing a book for the holidays, and one of the pictures, one of the stars of the book would be Gertie Dunn, and we have a picture of her playing college lacrosse,
right,
and college hockey. So somehow she snuck through that, because you would think that as a professional, she would not have been able to play collegiate sports as well. So I don't know where that fits in. That's a little bit of a history assignment that we can.
That was a little confusing to me too. That unless she didn't want to take the chance of playing her senior year at Sharon Hill, and the games would be forfeited because, hey, you had a girl on your team that already played professionally. But yeah, when she was at Westchester, she's playing field hockey, lacrosse. I can't remember whether she played basketball there too in the winter. But that didn't seem to be a problem with them. But then again, some time had gone by too. So maybe that, but that's a real good question.
Maybe they really didn't realize that, what was going on as far as her being a professional, and nobody brought it up.
Yeah, yeah.
So that might have been something that came up.
And you didn't have all that publicity from the movie either. The movie came out
right, yeah.
much later, but
And a final thought about Gertie, the parents. Rich has some children that were athletes, and I had a couple children that were athletes, and we would follow them around and watch them play sports. And I asked Gertie, I said, did your dad, take an interest in your sports? And she said, my dad took me every place he wanted to go. so with all these sports involved, the dad had to have a real good time. And I think there's a picture or two when she was playing in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League with the father.
Yeah, and he had a lot of influence over her because her mother died when she was very young.
So I hope we had a chance to encourage everybody to come out and see Gertie Dunn and the rest of the women at the Wide World of Women's Sports exhibit. And we'll be moving on to a second lady very shortly. Hello, back again with Rich Pagano and Jim Vankoski from the Sports Legends of Delaware County Museum, talking about one of our women athletes that is celebrated at our museum. And in this instance, we're talking about Alice Putty Willets. And I'm smiling because we're producing a book, and one of the pages in the book is going to be nicknames. And certainly Putty Willets should be one of those individuals whose nickname is included in our book. Can you tell us a little bit about that nickname, Rick?
Yeah, her middle name is Putnam. It was Alice Putnam Willets. And so from Putnam we get Putty.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's really from the name. It has nothing to do with the material putty or
And one of the things that we're most proud about in our episodes here is we're talking about Delaware County athletes. And Alice Putty Willets is certainly a Delaware County athlete going to Swathmore High School. And as a matter of fact, she is one of those iconic field hockey lacrosse players that's in the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame and the National Field Hockey Hall of Fame. And we happen to have her lacrosse stick, which is from her 1940 season, with her name. So we have some identification there, Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, she played and what's interesting, her coach was Virginia Allen, and Virginia Allen had gone to Media High School and played at Temple and coached at Swathmore High School for years. But what's really interesting, for 27 years, Virginia Allen went undefeated, never lost a game in lacrosse, coaching lacrosse at Swathmore. And Putty played for her for 4 years.
So that's one of the things I think about with Title IX. I don't know how many people in the audience understand what Title IX is about. I don't know if we're going to give a lesson right now to take that too long a time, but when you talk to some of the women athletes, they'll talk about southeastern Pennsylvania, Delaware County, being way ahead of the rest of the country when it comes to women athletics. And that, for example, Jean Shiley, I believe our first Olympic gold medal winner, might have played in 3 or 4 different sports in the late 20s, early 30s in high school.
Right. I guess they passed Title IX in 1972 to give equal amount of money to women's programs as to the men, and they caught up in a lot of areas. But you're right. In our area, especially Delaware County, women's sports was very big, and just a ton of outstanding coaches and athletes that have gone on to coach in major universities across the country too.
So you met Putty Willets. You knew Putty.
Yeah, actually, I did a column on Putty some years ago and interviewed her at where she lived in Swarthmore, and yeah, she was. She could tell you the history of women's sports in Delaware County, especially with lacrosse and field hockey, because she ended up coming. She went to Temple too. Virginia Allen, of course, I think influenced her, and played at Temple because she played on the U.S. teams, as you mentioned, in field hockey and lacrosse. And then she came back and assisted Virginia Allen at Swathmore High School. And then when Virginia Allen retired in 1962, Putty became the head coach, and she coached for another 40 years. You know, these coaches stayed around so long, it really doesn't happen.
And more than one sport.
And more than one sport. But I don't think it happens nowadays. You know, people don't coach that long, especially at one school, too.
Well, I think Rich has a book. Hold your book up, Rich. He's got to get more printed. This is one of the few books that sell out. It's called Delaware County Sports Legends. And in his book, he has a little article on Putty.
Right.
And I think he mentions that she coached 3 sports for 30 years approximately, never had a losing season in any of them.
No, never had a losing season in 40 years, which is just amazing. And she had undefeated teams too, like her mentor, Virginia Allen. She had, I think, 3 or 4 undefeated seasons in hockey, lacrosse, and she coached basketball and had 3 undefeated seasons there too.
We had a great exhibit called Wide World of Women's Sports, and we had must have been 12, 15 great women athletes, and Putty was one of those athletes that came, and she was, at that point in time, she was not a very tall woman.
No, not at all.
And she's still living today. She's got to be over 90.
Yeah,
she graduated in 1940 from high school. And she said, you know, I don't mind getting older, Jim. What I really don't like is getting shorter. so
yeah,
that
we
was
all shrink a little.
Yeah, everybody seems when they get to in their 80s and 90s, it's certainly not the.
Was she in her 80s when she came to that
yes,
women's
she drove.
exhibit we had?
Oh yeah, she drove. I didn't want her to drive home. She said, "No, I'm fine." You know, so we would. I knew Putty from teaching, because when Swathmore High School and Nether Providence High School merged, and Putty was a Swathmore instructor, and I was working at Nether Providence, so we got an opportunity to meet one another and discuss one another. And I really got to her one time, Rich, because when I looked at the hockey stick, I said, Putty, what I really don't like, and I said, you might want to join me in coming up with a court case. They don't have any left-handed hockey sticks. Said you can only play right-handed. I said, how do they get away with that? And to this day, I don't know how they get away with it. So
yeah,
I'm giving somebody an opportunity to make a lot of money out there, patent a left-handed hockey stick, sue the Hockey Association that they won't let left-handers play, and you'll have the only game in town. You'll be the only manufacturer that has left-handed.
She didn't have an answer for that, did she?
Well, yeah, the answer was, well, we let left-handers play. They just have to play right-handed. So I said, just like, I'm sorry, Babe Ruth. You can play, but you can't hit left-handed. You're going to have to hit right-handed. So we would have a lot of fun with that. And she was another strong woman athlete that was so knowledgeable and so competitive. I mean, the competition among the women is every bit as great as the competition among men. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand that.
Yeah, she was, even at Temple, she was on the all-college field hockey team 4 straight years. And she, like many others, they got a chance to travel the world being on those U.S. teams, you know, for lacrosse and hockey throughout Europe and you know, where the game was invented. And it was a great experience. But she just had all this knowledge. She was pretty modest, too, to talk to. Sometimes when you interview these people, it's like pulling teeth to get them to say something about what they did, you know, in their careers. But it was really nice interviewing her and getting that whole history of, because, you know, we didn't know much. When we were back in high school, the women's sports didn't get the kind of attention that the men's sports got, you know, at the high school level. So,
but now when you look at through the efforts of one of our board members, Harry Chaikin, when you look at the local newspapers, the women's sports are advertised or reported
Yes.
on every bit as much as the
They are now.
matter of fact, sometimes I'll start reading an article and I'm thinking I'm reading about the baseball team, but it's about the softball team. You know,
Right.
well, who beat who in this?
Right. Yeah, they're getting their publicity now, and then of course Title IX back in '72 really helped with the disbursement of money.
So once again, we'd like to thank Putty Willets for putting on loan her 1940 hockey stick, her 1940.
They're not donated; they're on loan.
Well, I always say
Yeah.
on loan,
Yeah.
but they, as long as we display them, they're perfectly happy. All the items that we have, nothing's been purchased.
Right.
And they're perfectly happy to have these items on display, and we're perfectly happy to put them on display because it gives them a degree of being remembered.
Yeah.
You exist as long as you're remembered, and that's one of the goals of our museum, is to make sure many of these athletes continue to be remembered as to what they did for the sports that they're involved in. So again, come to our Sports Legends of Delaware County Museum at 301 Ivan Avenue in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and take advantage of the tours that we have to offer. And the price is right as well. There's no admission charge. The phone number for anybody that would like to get in touch is 610-909-4919. That's 610-909-4919, and I'll be happy to answer your call. So thanks for visiting us again, and we'll see you next time.